What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome into another edition of the NFL Weekly, the pre-Super Bowl week edition to be exact. Got a lot to get to. We will, of course, get to the conference championship games, but we have some other house cleaning, some of the news that has been going on over the last week or so. Get that figured out. But with me, as always, we have Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing great. Sun's still out again. It looks like we're past all the winter weather. Next season, please. And that season is college basketball season and then baseball season. What more can we ask for?
Amen. Especially here as Padre fans or San Diego fans.
That's right.
Normally, we got a month or two to enjoy the Padres before they're quote unquote not mathematically eliminated, but we see the writing on the wall. That won't be the case this year, as I knock on wood to make sure I'm not jinxing anything, but I do expect the Padres to be a pretty darn good team. And as you said, we're still getting closer to March Madness, but with that, we got one big game to be settled in the NFL. That will be, of course, in 10 days. As we are recording Thursday, February 2nd. We're still 10 days away from the Super Bowl. So of course we will get to some of those thoughts later, but we are going to start in with the big news. Really, I think it was yesterday. It must have happened early in the morning because I woke up at 5:30 in the morning and it had already been announced. So Tom Brady must have woke up and got the announcement out early. Of course, that announcement is he is retiring, and this time he did say for good, kind of remembering his situation last year. I did like where he said I used up my long-winded retirement last year, so all I'm gonna say is I'm done, and thanked a few people and kind of moved on. But two-part question for you, Raider Jim. Do you believe or do you expect Tom Brady to stay retired? And if so, overall, what do you think his legacy is now after 23 years and 7 Super Bowls?
I think he will stay retired. I think he thought he could come back, and then along with the challenges of the season, I wouldn't say a subpar performance by him, but just the lack of success by the Bucks overall. He realized, hey, I went to the well one more time, didn't quite get a full bucket, but he still had a real decent showing. So he will stay retired. Besides, I think he's going to find a pretty easy transition into being a commentator. Why not? These guys get to sit in the studio, they get to dress nice, and they get to have the camaraderie of their peers. So I think we'll see him doing that. Legacy. I mean, what do you say? As a boxing fan, I know it took me a while before I really appreciated the skills and the abilities of a Sugar Ray Leonard. Even Ali to a degree, but that was because that was more historical for me, even though I did see him fight when he was, middle and end of his career. And I think that's how it's going to play out for me and Brady. I've never had a dislike for the guy at all. I don't necessarily tune in just because Brady's going to be on TV, but I also find that I don't turn away if he's on TV, especially when he's losing, because there's just something about him. 22 years in the league. He's on the records as I think it's 2000, 2001 were his first year in the NFL. I think he had 6 passing yards that year. Then he ended up the following year, he had 2,800 yards. Since then, he's accumulated over 89,200 yards of passing. And if you do your elementary school math, what that means is he has thrown a football just under 51 miles. Miles.
Wow.
That is a lot of distance. He's been the most valuable player 3 times. He went to the Pro Bowl 15 times. He has 7 Super Bowl rings. He's been named the Super Bowl most valuable player 5 times. His legacy, he truly is. You put him up against the Michael Jordans, anybody else, sport for sport, achievement for achievement, he truly is the greatest of all time, I think.
I agree. I do expect him to stay retired. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I think last year, I don't want to say he felt it was easy. I don't think he's ever felt it's easy, but I think he felt I'm going to show up we're going to make the playoffs and have a really good shot of winning the Super Bowl. Now, obviously, they did make the playoffs, but that was because of the division they were in, not in spite of that. And I think him getting embarrassed kind of in that first week and looking around knowing, okay, I'm not going to stay in Tampa. What are my other options? With all due respect to the Raiders, or the Jets, or there weren't those easy fixes. There weren't any times where he could go and say, you know what, all I need to do is show up and we're going to be a Super Bowl contender. So I think that also affected his decision as well. Obviously, this is I thought it was a very interesting little fact that this Tom Brady is now the final Montreal Expo draft pick. Yes, he was drafted by the Montreal Expos. So
Correct.
no more Montreal Expo affiliation in sports anymore. But for Brady, his legacy, whether you like the guy or not. And the only reason I feel like you don't like him is because he's beaten your team into a pulp. I don't think he's ever done anything on a personal level. Maybe if you're a waiter and he stiffed you, okay, whatever. But it's the feeling I had with Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. I didn't like them when they were playing, but it was because they were really good. And I hated seeing the same person or the same team over and over and over again. And that's what those two guys did in the NBA. And we really didn't see it, at least in this salary cap era, modern football, of seeing one guy essentially always there. I think 70% of the seasons he was in the championship game, not the Super Bowl, but either the AFC or NFC. That is incredible. Just to have that. He is the best of all time. Obviously Montana had his thing, but 7 rings. It's unmatched. He has more Super Bowl rings than all of the active quarterbacks in the NFL currently. I mean, you could go on and on about Tom Brady. Once again, never a fan of him as a player, but that was because he was really, really good. But I do think in 3 or 4 years when he is, fully retired, I do think we're going to look back and go, wow, it was really incredible to see him, really his whole career. For us to see him kind of grow up and eventually turn into a football old man, and thought he was going to play till 50, but that is not the case. He's all done with football, at least for the moment. We'll see how it goes. But with that, we do have Coach Brandon Lupian hopping in. You can find Coach at Portland 76er. Coach, we're getting things started off, of course, with the Tom Brady retirement. It's a 2-part question to you. Do you believe that he is going to stay retired? And if so, what do you believe his legacy is after a real storied career?
I'm glad you guys started with this. I couldn't hop on without hearing my son in the background say, talk about Tom Brady and his retirement. Not that he's a fan of his, but, for someone that's 13, understanding the value that he brings to the NFL, I think it speaks major volumes. Do I think he's going to retire? Me personally, I kind of wish he doesn't. I kind of wish that there's some intriguing storylines for certain teams that he will add major value, whether it's just competitive edge, whether that's experience, whether that's not necessarily grooming an up and coming quarterback. But I think he has the moxie, he has the ability, the knowledge, the talent to be able to provide something to that team that needs that push to get over the edge. So, do I think he'll stay retired? I believe he will this time. Do I want him to? No, not really. And it's not because and I don't hold any animosity toward him because of his winning ways. There's just those guys that have it, and I understand the how you recall certain other athletes in other sports because they just win. But at the end of the day, at the end of their career, when they're giving those Hall of Fame speeches, I think as a sports fan in general, we all have a level of appreciation for him and what he did for their respective sports. And and leagues. So, you know, do I think he's going to stay retired? It sounds like it. You could kind of hear the voice crack a little bit in that Twitter video. I think if you didn't mean it, you don't feel it. I think he turned it off right before he was about to shed a tear or whatnot. And they always say when you shed a tear, it's your body reacting to words you can express. So I think the timing of it was right. But I mean, what a outstanding career. What a great, you know, and it wasn't always great for the opposing teams to experience just the level of play this guy was able to bring to his prospective team. So
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. I don't know for sure. I don't know if I just maybe dreamt this or what or imagined this, but I do believe he's already got something locked up with Fox. And I could be wrong there, but he is definitely I know CBS, NBC, and Fox and ESPN. If they already don't have, or if he already isn't locked up, they're all going to be clamoring to get a piece of Brady. And it'd be interesting to see how he does it. That I definitely had my doubts about Romo. He's turned into a really good color guy. And I think Brady would be as well. But we'll see how that goes. And going forward, you know, for the NFL, obviously big shoes to fill. If you want to be the GOAT, really overall, at least in terms of success, Brady. Oh, what a season, or what a career. 7 Super Bowls, 2 different teams. But for now, that is all said and done. So moving on to the coaching carousel. Wow, this is started to heat up at least this week. I think I said last week on the podcast, you know, I'd really like to see DeMeco Ryans get a head coaching job. I just hope it's not in Houston because we know what's happened there. Well, DeMeco Ryans signs a 6-year contract with the Texans. I do hope that, you know, with them signing him for 6 years, they give him more than 1 year, or they get him a quarterback. With all due respect to Davis Mills, I think it's really unfair to expect a rookie coach to come in and be successful with a below average quarterback. Let's be honest. And then we did see, of course, Sean Payton heading to Denver. And plenty others. We saw the Frank Wright as well. We may have already talked about Frank Wright, but he's heading to Carolina. That was kind of the first domino to fall. But Raider Jim, your thoughts overall on what we've seen in the quote unquote coaching carousel?
Yeah, I guess my 1A and my 1B are those top 2 that you talked about, Sean Payton, DeMeco Ryans, and I agree with what you said also. As a fan, you might be a little bit excited that DeMeco Ryans is getting this opportunity, and you think about, you know, the great defensive schemes this guy can run and just, you know, wreak havoc on offenses. But at the same time, you're a little bit hesitant because hiring him for a 5 to 6 year contract right out of the gate tells me that we're going to do some rebuilding. We're going to do some reprogramming. We're going to let him tear it down to the studs and build us a new house. And that takes a while. So let's see what he can do and how fast. I hope the expectations for the fans aren't too high. I think he's a gentleman that is going to have great success as a coach, and he'll be around for a while. I just hope they give him I hope the general manager and the ownership give him the tools he needs to put the right team out on the field. And what do you say about Sean Payton? The best thing he can do, he already knows how to coach. He's got a decent team out there. But now, can he be the next Pete Carroll for Russell Wilson and help save his career from what happened this last year? Because he needs somebody that's going to be able to get that confidence back. Not that he lost his confidence, but he needs to get everybody performing around him and all 11 guys on the offensive side of the ball moving in the same direction at the same pace and understanding. Hopefully that's what Peyton's going to bring to the Denver Broncos on the offensive side.
Yeah, obviously it's kind of the Russell Wilson, I think, is the big wild card in the Denver. You know, Sean Payton's going to bring that experience and I think just a really good offensive mind. But we saw what we saw out of Russell Wilson, and I'm not going to sit here and say that's it. He's done. But the microscope is going to be on him all year. If he comes out the first 2 or 3, 4 weeks and struggles again, you're going to have question marks. I don't know how the Broncos, I mean, they'll have to settle for a late round or at least a mid-round quarterback. They're going to have to give up their draft picks to bring Sean Payton in. But it's going to be difficult. Coach, what are your thoughts on the coaching carousel? Obviously a good friend of yours, or at least someone you have a good amount of respect for, in Sean Payton heading to Denver and other pickups.
Yeah. I don't know if we could call each other friends, but there has been a like on Twitter from him. He's very responsive to a lot of fans' posts. And, you know, anytime someone tries to take a shot at him and he responds back, I like it because, he's engaging and whatnot. But let's talk about D'Amico Ryans a little bit. I don't think he takes that job if he wasn't a former Houston Texan. I think that played a lot into it. I don't know if he has family or has a residence or resides in the area, but I mean, that's a tough gig to kind of want to even look into, given what they've done to more recent coaches, letting them go or not giving a chance long enough and whatnot. But I think this is a talented roster aside from the quarterback. I read the other day that in comparison to what Sean Payton had going into a 3-13 New Orleans his first year, this Houston team has more talent than that New Orleans team did. So I know Houston was really looking at Sean Payton in those regards. Now, this is something that D'Amico Ryans is going to inherit. So, maybe there is that chance if they could find that right complementary quarterback that will protect the ball or be in a position to protect the ball the first couple of seasons before they could get that talent to become what they believe their potential could be. So, the last thing I hate hearing is a coach losing a job. And the first thing that I love to do is wish luck to all the coaches getting a new job. I think the responsibilities they have in it itself is just a tough situation. You want to establish your own vision, your own philosophy, and that includes hiring assistants, and that includes working with a GM, and that includes engaging with current rosters and looking to build from ground zero. So I wish him luck. I really kind of don't know the decision-making process as to why Houston, other than he has some affiliation or previous affiliation to them. So I wish all these new coaches the best of luck, including now Sean Payton over in Denver. And, when the initial talks were him interviewing with them, Russell Wilson was adamant about wanting to get him in and wanting to learn from him and wanting to reestablish an identity under him. So I think there was a major selling point from him going into this decision and them offering him. And, I think it's irrelevant now to say D'Amico Ryans was Denver's first choice. And that didn't happen. And I guess, how can you call Sean Payton a plan B? And if that's going to be the talk about Sean in Denver or on the NFL Network or what, those are kind of the things that Sean uses as fuel to get back and let his talents as a coach and let his ability to be turn teams around kind of be that, oh, really? So I was just the backup plan? Nah, he's not a coach that accepts that. And yeah, that's the fodder. that was going around after Ryan's accepted the Houston job. But, let's not forget, before before Sean Payton and the Saints, it was all these other coaches and the Aints. And they're expecting big things from him in Denver, as they should, because if there are no expectations, then you really have nothing to work with. So, it's not going to be my problem in my division. That'll be Raider Jim's problem in his division. And Raider Jim, best of luck to you and your Raiders. And, hey, what can I say? I'm in a division that doesn't have any quarterbacks, any established head coaches. And we're looking like the NFC East a couple years ago when Mr. First Eagles were, what did you guys start out at? 7-0, and then lost 11 of the next.
I think the whole division. I think that was the year that it was the year, I believe, that the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl, because it was they beat a 7-9 Washington. I don't know if they were the Redskins or the football team at that point, but they were 7-9. It was the whole division that was just bad.
Yeah, so there's hope for my NFC South, is what I'm saying. You guys got a team in the Super Bowl. That'll be us in a year or two, something like that. So there's hope. But
definitely,
Sean Payton is Raider Jim's issue, and I can't wait to hear that AFC West report with Sean Payton coming out of Raider Jim's illustrious voice.
Yeah, I will say, I think the backup plan, why Sean Payton was plan B, was because what it would take to give up. I think if it was just nothing else, if there was no compensation needed, I think obviously Sean Payton has to be everyone's number one pick. But with that also being said, a lot of these teams may need a quarterback and maybe are holding on to first round picks for Aaron Rodgers. Now, Denver isn't that team. They have to, for better or worse, they're tied at the ankles to Russell Wilson unless they want to pay dead money for the next 3 years. But I do think that was a big thing for the Broncos, maybe to get DeMeco Ryans in kind of without giving up draft picks. That is no longer the case. But for the Texans to get DeMeco Ryans, hopefully he can stay. The big question is going to be for them is what happens with the number 1 overall pick, because if you're a team that needs a quarterback, maybe the scariest place to be is the 2nd overall pick. Now, we don't expect the Bears to pick a quarterback at number 1, but there is a lot of talk that they will be active in the trade, whether it's Justin Fields being traded or that number 1 overall pick being traded. And trust me, if any team is moving into the number 1 pick, they are picking a quarterback. So we'll see how that goes. And I also think overall for DeMeco Ryans, I think it's best for him to go out and bring in a veteran quarterback. Because, he's a defensive guy. I think it's difficult for a rookie head coach to bring in a rookie quarterback and expect those two to flourish, especially when the rookie head coach is on the defensive side of things. So we'll see how that goes. I do think overall we're going to see some really good stuff from DeMeco Ryans. Hopefully he gets his chance fully. So with that being said, time to dive into the championship game reviews. Obviously we'll start chronologically in the NFC side of things, and I'm going to call a little audible here because normally, I would be the one starting it, or if it was the Raiders, it would be Raider Jim, blah, blah, blah. I feel like I'm so wound up and ready to roll. I want to leave some meat on the bone. I don't want to talk for 10 minutes and Raider Jim coach go, oh yeah, I don't have anything else to say. So with that, we are going to take a look back at, of course, the NFC Championship game that, as an Eagle fan, I think has to have an asterisk by it. Obviously, when you have a team that in the second half cannot throw the football, literally doesn't have anybody can throw the football more than 10 yards, it's kind of like a cat playing with a spider that it's ripped off 7 of its legs. It's just, it's not fun to watch, even as me as an Eagle fan. But Raider Jim, we'll give you the honors first. What were your thoughts? The NFC title game, marred by injury for sure, but at the end of the day, the Eagles are victorious 31-7 heading to the Super Bowl. Oh, you're mute.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
I guess it really is true. Great minds think alike, because you started the Brady thing, and probably within the first 3 sentences you spoke, some of the phrases and some of the words that I was going to use came out of your mouth. And I was just going to say, when I led into this NFC championship game talk, everybody north of Ventura to the state line of Oregon and California, every newspaper had an asterisk on that game. And it's too bad, because it's no fault of the Eagles. It almost takes away from what the Eagles really accomplished this year. They have played fantastic football. Not their fault, the things that happened on to Garoppolo, to the backup, to the other backup. But, in the third quarter, early into the third quarter, when you hear an announcer from the other room of your house say, "Oh, Christian McCaffrey is lining up in the Wildcat," things have gone bad for those 49ers. That aside, all the bad breaks, et cetera, you can't take away from their season the defense that they put on the field week in and week out to get to that championship game. But again, all the praise, all the focus has to be on those high-flying Eagles. They really, really came to play both games against the Niners and against the Giants the week before, and they deserve every chance to go to that Super Bowl next weekend. And I can't wait to see what happens when they get out there against the Chiefs. This is going to be one entertaining game, I think.
Definitely. Yeah, it was marred. I will say we all kind of expected a behemoth gladiator matchup, and unfortunately one gladiator came without an arm, and that's difficult. You can't expect a fair fight in that situation. But Coach, what were your thoughts? NFC title game, Philadelphia emerges victorious.
What an outstanding showing that the Philadelphia Eagles displayed all playoff long. Yeah, I picked the Giants. I wanted to be that outlier, and I wanted to get under your skin a little bit. But I also thought the Niners would show out a little bit different, a little bit better. And unfortunately, Brock Purdy goes down early. And I really agree with Raider Jim. That should be no reflection on what an outstanding season the Eagles have had up to this point, get into the Super Bowl. They played outstanding. And I don't think the way that defense played, I don't think a Brock Purdy would have been enough anyway, given the number of points that they've been putting up in their recent, 4 games, even with him going 7-0 up until that point. So, more of a congratulatory from me for Philly and yourself, and more of a praise for what they've done since Jalen Hurts was back. Yeah, I know you mentioned that they hadn't been able to throw. Well, yeah, he hasn't been playing, and he's their guy. And he's their guy as much as he wasn't your guy a couple seasons ago. Just had to get that in.
Never once said that, by the way, for the record.
Man,
never.
I think I tried to pin it one time on your Twitter feed.
Can't pin something that never happened, sir.
But you know what? Again, all congrats and praise to Philadelphia. They did an outstanding job getting to where they are, having and doing it consistently, given certain circumstances all season long. And I'm really rooting for an exciting game, regardless of who wins. I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't have a pick in this game. But what a dominating performance in the playoffs that really haven't seen in a couple of seasons. When Tampa Bay won it, they were almost challenged by Washington, and they had to pull it out in the last second and a couple of controversial plays, not NFL officiating calls, a couple questionable plays against New Orleans. So, it's they really came through in dominating fashion, to say the least.
Definitely. Yeah. It's nice that Coach did say that, the whole Jalen Hurts wasn't my guy, because before I dive into this, I have some apologies. Let's just say it like it is. Now, I never
Is this
once
part
said,
of your Is this part of your 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Are you getting overtime?
Yeah. Start the clock.
Start the clock.
No, there are some apologies that definitely need to be handed out on my side of things. Now, while I never went so far as to say he isn't my guy, I never quite understood the pick at the time. Carson Wentz, and look, I understand we know what he is now or what he isn't now, maybe a better way to say that. But at that point, Carson Wentz was the future. And that pick came in, and Jalen Hurts was a guy that was kind of a bit of an afterthought. At the pro level, I think there were some people that were surprised he was drafted in the second round. And look at what he's turned into. He has progressed every single season, even from his start. It took me a week or two, or excuse me, a year or two to really fully buy in to what Jalen Hurts was selling. And obviously I was wrong. And you know what? I am perfectly fine with that. I have, it's the most excited I've ever been about being wrong in my life. Other than when I said Peter Seidler buying the Padres won't change anything. That's the only other time that I felt like I've been more wrong and it's been better for me. So that apology, I apologize to you, Jalen Hurts. And I was one of the millions, let's be honest. I mean, he's been overlooked since his days at Alabama, where he was benched and then essentially lost his job, and then still came back to win an SEC title for them, and then had to go out to Oklahoma and get the job done there. But fantastic stuff. Another apology goes to Howie Roseman. There were draft nights where, my goodness, I wouldn't be able to be in a 5-mile radius of Howie Roseman because he would hear me screaming. It was the DK Metcalf, or excuse me, JJ Arcega-Whiteside instead of DK Metcalf, and then followed up Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson, when all I said on the podcast, we were doing it live, and I said, okay, this is it. We got Justin Jefferson. This is who we want. And Jalen Reagor's the pick. I had to go on mute because there are children possibly listening, and that was not PG rated. So for Howie Roseman, wow, this is a guy who has built a Super Bowl, tore it down, and built up another one in a span of 5 years. That is something you have to tip your hat to. So to you, Howie, I do apologize. But we got that out of the way. Onto this game. Obviously, I'm pumped that the Eagles were able to win. It wasn't the way I wanted it to go down. I wanted this game to be really good and the Eagles become victorious. That would have been a perfect world. I think we would have gotten a really good game. I still do, Coach, you kind of brought it up. I believe even with a healthy Brock Purdy, the Eagles win this game. It's certainly not 31-7. It's certainly not without drama, but I expected the Eagles to win that game. And the other part of it too, look, the Eagles just went out and played really solid defense. Nothing was dirty. There were no roughing the passers on it or anything like that. No one stepped on someone's hand or anything like that. It's just unfortunate for the Niners, that they were out of it, in that situation, as Coach is calling me out on wearing a red flannel with an Eagles. I just got off of work, sir. I got to be business casual. But anyways, in that situation, and I did just realize I am wearing Chief colors, but it is in Super Bowl week. Anyways, the Eagles went out and handled their business. They got the job done against a good defense. And did what they had to do. You ask any quarter or any defensive player, and they're not going to say, I want to injure the quarterback, but that's kind of their job, is to take that quarterback out of the game, whether it's literally take him out of the game or make him ineffective. That was the case. Hassan Reddick, unbelievable. The free agent signing of the century in my mind. How this guy isn't a defensive player of the year candidate, that's another story. But for the Eagles, my goodness, Lane Johnson in this offensive line. The offensive line kept Jalen Hurts upright all game. He had to get out of the pocket. He had to scramble sometimes. There's no doubt about that. But they kept him upright, and that was key. And Lane Johnson going up against Joey Bosa. Nick Bosa. My goodness. Joey Bosa was the one who was getting heckled by the Eagle fans pregame. But anyways, Nick Bosa, 0 quarterback hurries, 0 quarterback hits, and obviously 0 sacks against Lane Johnson, who is playing with a torn abductor and a torn groin. This man should have been in surgery weeks ago, getting ready for next year, but he said, no, I'm going to fight through it. And not only is he fighting through it, but he's staying at the level that he's always played at. It's really, really incredible to see him do that. And the defense did what they needed to do. And one final apology. I got to give an apology. to the coaching staff. Nick Sirianni's press conference may have been the worst press conference ever. His opening press conference, I thought he was drunk or high, something. I mean, you go back and watch it and it's cringe worthy. You really, really kind of want to turn it off. It's like one of those Office or Seinfeld episodes that are just really, really awkward and they're hard to watch. That was Nick Sirianni's press conference. He's obviously turned into a fantastic head coach and he's stuck with Jonathan Gannon. This was somebody last year, defensive coordinator for the Eagles. I wanted him to go. I couldn't believe that they kept him on for another year. He's led one of the best defenses in football. So just I'll do the sandwich. I'll start with the apology and I'll end with the apology. And there's definitely some meat in between. But the Eagles do move on. And once again, it is with an asterisk. But this isn't something they did. They didn't, a late hit on Brock Purdy or anything like that. Sometimes football, that happens. So moving on to the AFC side of things, this was the game that we
Time's up.
Expect. Yeah, exactly. Actually, that was quicker than I thought. It was only, I think, 6 or 7 minutes. So good for me. I'm sure I missed one or two things, but that's probably best for everyone involved. But with the AFC side of things, obviously we saw Kansas City, I guess, exercise those Burrow demons, if you will. Patrick Mahomes gets his first win over the Bengals. Harrison Butker's last second field goal sends Kansas City to another Super Bowl. And this is an AFC West spot, so there's no other way to start other than passing the reins over to Raider Jim. What were your thoughts on the AFC title game? Kansas City victorious over Cincinnati.
Well, this one sure lived up to the hype, I got to say, and didn't look like it at the get-go. On the outset, it didn't look like it would. The Chiefs' defense really did a fantastic job. You expected the offense to perform the way they did. When we started off by talking about Tom Brady, one of the remarks I made was it took me a while, like it did with Sugar Ray Leonard when it comes to boxing. Always there, always winning, but there was just something about him until I really started to watch. When Patrick Mahomes was a rookie, all I could think by the end of that first season was, this kid's going to get it one day. He's going to get his lunch and he's going to deserve it because you can't do this cute crap game in, game out. Okay, I eat crow because it's not cute crap. He's just this talented. He's that good. He had a bad ankle. He could have sat out. I know he fought to play in the game. And when it came down to that last play, even though he might have got hit when he was out of bounds, you could just see his eyes open up and he's like, I just got to do this. And I just looked to the person next to me on the sofa and said, he's going to run. And he wasn't fast. He wasn't 100%, but he knew exactly where he needed to get. His ability to execute is just phenomenal. Also, his ability to stay composed. He mucked that one snap.
Yeah.
He's the reason that they lost the ball. He didn't pout. He was frustrated with himself. What did he do? The defense went out, did their thing. He came back. He got composed, and they were back in the game. They stayed in the game. Fantastic on both sides. I felt bad for the Bengals to fight back the way they did, only to come up so short and come up short the way that they did. Joseph Asai, what do you say about that guy? I mean, that vision. All of a sudden, as a dad, I'm thinking, wow, he looks like one of the little boys at the Little League World Series when it's the third out and we just lost the game. I mean, I don't know how mentally that guy comes out of it. Is he going to start holding up now? And he's going to say, no, I'm good. And he's going to have the veterans around him and his teammates saying, hey, man, you still got to play. You still got to play. But that play is just going to keep coming back in his head for who knows how long off season for him. But congratulations to the Bengals for making it there. Congratulations to the Chiefs for persevering, getting through it. And man, they showed everybody why they were picked to be the number one team in the AFC by me at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, it's very, it's interesting. The Chiefs, there were a lot of question marks, or at least more question marks than normal. They got rid of Tyreek Hill. A lot of people wondered if Juju Smith-Schuster or Martez Valdez-Scantling was good enough. Well, I don't think that was the right question. I think it was, is Patrick Mahomes good enough? And guess what? He is. For Cincinnati, obviously Joseph Asai, look, he had a really good year for a rookie. This was a mistake that he made. It was unfortunate. And you saw the emotion on the sideline. I really do wish CBS didn't keep that camera on him for 30 seconds or so. I just kind of was like one of those, just okay, we get it. He's crying on the sideline. Like, we don't need to sit there and do that. But on Cincinnati's side, I feel like there's a fine line between confidence and cockiness. And the Patriots dynasty, they kind of were on that line, but they never crossed into cocky. They were always confident and you always expected it, but they never went over to that cockiness side. And I start to think that that's what's going on. We heard all the talk in the previous week, Burrowhead.
100%.
Yeah. And to me, I'm looking around going, okay, look, you're not 30-0 against this guy. You're 3-0 against this guy. Take a step back. Even if you're playing a best of 7 series, you still got to get one more. And it was very just interesting. The Cincinnati mayor making like a mock press conference, and at the end talking, oh, we're going to do a paternity test to prove that Joe Burrow is Patrick Mahomes' father. Like, shut up. Make your stupid bet with the Kansas City mayor, or I'll give you this or you'll give me that, and fade off into the background. I'm sure the people of Cincinnati would have liked you to kind of kept your mouth shut. I mean, Travis Kelce said both. You know, he pretty much made it obvious that was bulletin board material for them. And I really do think that Joe Burrow and those guys, I think they went over that line, and now they're in that cockiness, and they ran up against a buzzsaw in Kansas City that is really good at towing that cockiness to confidence line. Mahomes was fantastic. I think the game plan was as good as it could have been. For Cincinnati, the mistakes were made. The referees were not doing them any favors. I understand that. It was pretty obvious at some point that, you know, they were leaning one way or the other. But I don't think that was the reason. Joe Burrow had a chance with, 2 minutes and 30 seconds to lead his team down the field. Couldn't get the job done. I believe he got another opportunity, still couldn't get the job done. And obviously Patrick Mahomes, that push, unfortunate. I really wanted overtime. I think we all wanted overtime, but at the end of the day, the Chiefs were the better team and they got the win. But Coach, what are your thoughts on the AFC Championship game?
Yeah, I was really rooting for overtime, but not to go one team or the other. I just wanted kind of some more competitive, some fun playoff football. That's where I was with it. It was really good stuff, and you seeing the excellence of the superstars, the ability to perform and step up to a level where you're keeping your team in and you eventually winning and advancing. So it's just really good weekend, or a really good second game of playoffs, and I didn't want it to end. Unfortunately, there was a mistake, and you got to rebound from those mistakes, and I think you brought it up, the muff snap, and then the fumble, a scout I heard says, it's not how you act and how you deal with that moment, it's how you let it affect you for the next 5 moments or the next 5 snaps, and it really didn't. They kept their cool, they kept their composure, and they were able to pull it out at the end, given the way it was. But it's going to be an exciting Super Bowl. The storylines have already started. I don't know. I mean, what's your affinity with Andy Reid going up against your team? It's going to be a good one, and I can't wait because like the storyline, like you said earlier, with Jalen Hurts, an outcast, like casted out at Alabama, resurrecting himself at Oklahoma, being unwanted second-round pick by Eagle fans, and being proclaimed that's not my quarterback and whatnot. But I think that's on the other network, so we can't prove it. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect.
We can't prove it. I'm not going back to relive those reels. But I think it's the two right teams made it to the end. And there's going to be fireworks on the field and not just during halftime. And I can't wait.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. You know what? If I did make that comment, it had to have been on the other network, and in that case, I was not in my right mind. I'll just say that right now. So mental anguish, that's what I'm calling it. Or insanity. I'm pleading insanity. That's my final answer. I'll get my lawyer here tomorrow.
Yeah, and
if I can add one.
Go ahead, Ritter Jim. Okay, and because it was, I'll never say that I did console you with the Jalen Reagor pick, because that was coming. That wasn't me. Can't prove it.
Facts.
Facts. Go ahead, Raider Jim. Give us your.
I just wanted to add one more thing to what Mr. First was saying about, crossing the line of cockiness. You look back at Jim McMahon and the '85 Bears. You look back at the old Oakland Raiders led by Snake Stabler. You look at the Steelers, the dynasty with Terry Bradshaw. Those guys had swagger. They laughed the whole time they were playing, most of the time. But they laughed amongst themselves. They weren't laughing at each other. They didn't go out and go on these tangents and try to make disparaging remarks about the other team or the other city. No, they were just having a good time. They played ball. And you're absolutely right. The difference between them and Joe Burrow is exactly that. And he will be detrimental to that team if he continues to be all mouth and no result.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting going forward. Kind of what's next. Maybe first step is getting rid of someone like Eli Apple. The guy always seems to be start the joke and then end up being the butt of the joke. But obviously next week we are going to dive deep into the Super Bowl. Before that, but we'll just get quick little thoughts. Raider Jim, we'll start with you. Early kind of thoughts heading into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think one of the things I like right now the most, my favorite thing is going to be the offensive center for the Philadelphia Eagles and that hot shot tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. I can't imagine. It's that feeling that I always have when I would see a Molina come up to the plate. You got Benji, you got this one, you got that one, yada yada. And you think, what does that dad feel like when he's sitting on the sofa watching his boys play against one another? What is their dad going to feel like sitting there watching them face off to one another? And it's too bad that one of them is going to be the victor, one of them is not going to be the victor. But I really like that storyline. Anything like that, I really appreciate. I do have a question for you, Brandon First. This headline that has come up in the last 24 hours, the offensive lineman for the Eagles who has been arrested on bad charges. Is it going to be one of these situations where they're going to continue to bring it up, where it's going to get into the locker room, where it's going to be even just a minor distraction?
I think it has to be a distraction, right? These guys have been around this guy for the last 17 plus weeks. And now, we're not talking about DUI or anything like that. We're talking about rape and kidnapping. This is some high level stuff. I'm not going to, I guess I have no idea about that side of it, the legal side. But for me, look, I'll be honest. I didn't know this guy's name 72 hours ago. And it wasn't because of anything. This guy is a third string lineman on a team that's set at the offensive line. I think the only part of it, media day rolls around. I'm sure you're going to have to, all these players are going to have to draw a line in the sand early on in those press conferences. I'm not answering any questions about him. And then obviously the distraction, but I think this game, and these guys have worked so hard to get here.
I would agree.
I don't think they're going to let this get to them. Like I said, there are going to be some moments maybe leading up to it. Oh man, because you do get a twinge. I'm sure there are some guys in that locker room that liked him, and that probably changes now. And I also will say, everyone, I don't know the specifics, but we are in America, and whether you believe it or not, it's presumed innocent until proven guilty. But at the same time, you're not going to play football this Sunday or next Sunday. But at the same time, on a football side of it, I don't think we would have seen this guy on the field regardless, whether he deserves it or not. But it is unfortunate, but I think the stuff that's going to happen on the field will have much more of an impact rather than this situation. Very sad. And obviously the only people that we need to think about in this are the victims of this. This story has nothing to do with the Eagles. I know it does, but in terms of how I approach it, first and foremost, heart goes out to the victims and all that stuff. Secondary is football in this situation.
I think the timing is odd because, as I understand, this is an incident that took place in 2019, 3 hours later. So, of course, my little conspiracy mind is like, who's got money on this one? And they decided to throw it out there in the press to create some distraction. And I would tell you, you know it because you're part of this Eagle fan base. Outside of the Eagle fan base, probably nobody could name 3 of the 5 starters on the Eagles offensive line. Ergo, all they hear is Eagle offensive lineman arrest, rape, kidnap.
Yeah.
And that's, it is an unfortunate thing.
So this happened in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
That's my understanding.
And the storylines are coming out.
Yeah.
So it's journalism at its finest. Someone looking for a story, and the spotlight is on both of these teams and every one of those players for the next juicy story. Which lineman gets caught in a brothel, or which, I think it's always that ugliness that they try to push at this time of the year. Like Raider Jim said, the questioning of the timing of the story. Why bring up that pain for those victims? How many years later? How unfair for them, right?
Yeah, it's honestly, I mean, these are 2 very different situations. There are similarities. Super Bowl and an offensive lineman. I know Raider Jim, is familiar. Barrett Robbins went AWOL. The last time the Super Bowl was here in San Diego. Once again, can't stress this enough. Completely different scenarios. But in that situation, I think that was a much bigger distraction. Now, Barrett Robbins shows up to the Super Bowl. I still think the Buccaneers win, right? But I think that was a big part of it. You really don't know what's going on. And the timing of it isn't great. But at the same time, I do somewhat know that, maybe the bureaucracy and the way the law works, a lot of these lawyers and DAs, and they want to make sure they have a locked case. And if it takes an extra year or 2, that's where it goes. But yeah, the timing of this is a little bit odd, but at the same time, hey, they got out in front of this, and this is someone that if he is guilty or if he is being charged with this, he has no, he does not deserve to be playing in the playoffs, let alone the Super Bowl. So at least they got in front of that, but definitely a very interesting story there. But we do have one more very interesting story for you, and it's coming out of Arian Foster's mouth. Yesterday, I don't know what podcast he was on or what interview he was being interviewed with, but
yeah, it was on a Barstool.
That's what it was.
Podcast.
Yeah.
And I'll let you finish. Go ahead, leading up into it. I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget where the podcast or the source was. Barstool Sports.
Barstool, yeah. So very, very interesting. Arian Foster coming out and pretty much saying, at the beginning of the year, the NFL gives us scripts for how each game is going to go. And, that sounds like a pretty crazy thing. And they kind of pressed him a little more. And he, said, oh, yeah, I knew I was going to score 3 touchdowns in this game or this or that. And I'll put the question to both of you. But the only thing I'm going to say, or at least to start it off, is if there is a script before each and every game, my goodness, the best actors in the world are not behind or on the big screen. They are on the football field, because I just don't know how this is done to where it follows the script 60 minutes with these competitors. But Raider Jim, we'll start with you. Do you believe Arian Foster, and maybe to bring it down just a little bit, are there any thoughts that, the NFL is rigged?
Rigged? No. Do I think Arian Foster may have tried to hold a poker face and say something tongue-in-cheek, and it has just, somebody lit the fuse and it has blown out of control? I would like to think he's as funny of a guy as he may be, or as whatever his motivation was there, I hope he can dance as well. Because I hope he dances and backtracks and says, hey, 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 no. Because I can't imagine what these 300 and something guys, or whatever the number is, that are in the NFL, it's way more than 300, it's in the thousands.
Mhm.
What do those guys feel like when they hear something like that? What is a Jim Otto who played center for the Raiders and has to lay down to put his jeans on? What is a Billy Ray Smith, who has the issues and challenges he deals with now? These guys that, fingers bent, and, the Ronnie Lott fingers. And for them to hear somebody say, oh, it's all scripted. He made a lot of enemies if he said that, and he wanted to have anything that was even marginally truthful to his statement. I think he's gonna get roasted real bad. But I do
Yeah.
not believe it's rigged. You're basically at that point putting it on the same level as professional wrestling.
Yes, and I will say this as a professional wrestling fan, the outcomes are determined, but they're still going through a table. So there is still some athleticism there, but you're right. It's not on the level of WWE where they know going out of the locker room, I should say, who is going to win. I just don't believe that's the case. I do believe that the NFL maybe might tell, referee, hey, it'd be really cool if LA wins this game over Seattle because it's a bigger market in the Super Bowl. But I really don't think Jerome Boger is running around on the headset going, guys, we got to get 4 more penalties in, or else, we're not going to get that script figured out. But Coach, what are your thoughts? Do you believe Arian Foster, and do you believe the NFL is rigged?
It's hard to fathom a team like the New England Patriots winning so much, going undefeated, and then making their run toward the Super Bowl, and then saying, "Oh yeah, we'll agree to losing to the Giants in Super Bowl whatever on a once in a lifetime helmet catch," right? Or that, wow, how well scripted could that be, right? But I don't know what's come into Arian Foster's head, whether it's wanting a little attention because he's not getting it at home, or because he's just done with the league. But it's kind of shocking. It's kind of weird that he's not the only one. Even our New Orleans Saints, Alvin Kamara, said that he was ready to walk out of the locker room, according to when he was handed this script. So that came out, immediately after the Arian Foster podcast. And, all this LLC listing the NFL as a entertainment, not a sport, it's a juicy topic. And, it's, as a New Orleans Saints fan, where we've in more recent past have been abruptly like misplaced out of the playoffs because of a call. Yep. Hey, I'm not so cut and dried at it. Certain things aren't scripted, but I mean, how can these guys go through the grind of a season, getting beat up, almost losing life, risking injury, and it's scripted to that point? No way. No way. It's just too unfathomable. But then, as these guys that are in the league and we're fans of and we're watching are coming out more and more, maybe there's a little belief to what's going on, or it's just some bitterness toward how the season ended, by a call or a play or a miss, whatever. Let's look at it like this. Mark Ingram ran out of bounds with less than a yard to get a first down when they're beating the Tampa Bay Bucks. Tom Brady's Tampa Bay Bucks. And then he marches them down and wins, and that's when the Saints are making a run toward gaining some edge on the division. Like, I don't know, man. Like, that's too much to fathom, but then you're kind of putting pieces together and being our own conspiracy theorist on this. I mean, just as much as you say you are, Raider Jim, a conspiracy theorist, I love all the conspiracies. I'm up at night watching my Instagram reels on, UFOs and Bigfoots and Antarctica, and now it's going to be the NFL script. Jeez, I'm not going to get any sleep.
I think what I've heard Coach say right now, to paraphrase, is for the last few seasons, the Saints have just been acting like they're a football team.
Wow. From the
Performing
top
at
rope.
I can't say nothing. I'm just going to.
One shot.
I'm just gonna let you guys suffer the Belichick curse amongst his assistant coaches for another season.
Yeah,
While we pick up Derek Carr in the offseason. Let me just say that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Throwing the gauntlet down.
Hot commodity.
But in terms of the NFL being scripted, I think the best way for me to disprove this would be, let's play fly on the wall. You're on the fly on the wall in the 49ers locker room this past Sunday. The NFL script writers, and I'm putting up air quotes for our listeners, they walk in and they hand the script to Kyle Shanahan and George Kittle and the rest of the 49ers. They just go, okay, we're going to lose the NFC Championship game because the script writers want our top 2 quarterbacks to go down. Are you serious? And then in the post-game press conference, no one's going to say anything? This is baloney. And that's the nicest way I can say it. It's a kid-friendly show and all that stuff. Arian Foster, I think, Coach, you hit it on the head. And someone needs to give this man attention. Does he need to get his own podcast? Does he need to join our podcast? Because I just think he went out and went, you know what? What can I do to make my name trend on Twitter? And this was what it was. Man. And to bring it back to what you said, Raider Jim, never a pro football banquet, never a reunion, any of those. You will not be invited to that. You just essentially, unless he walks these comments back and goes, wait, you guys really took me seriously, blah, 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 blah. But if he continues to stick to these guns, he's essentially blackballed from every football event out there, because like you said, it is a spit in the face to those guys. Now, do I believe the NFL has biases, and do I believe that maybe referees are a little biased towards certain teams? Sure, I could understand.
Yeah, you're looking at your teams in the Super Bowl.
Exactly. I will say the Devontae Smith catch was a catch because it was ruled a catch, damn it. But anyway, it's a situation where I don't look, the Eagles win the game probably more because of the injuries. But they also win the game because they're a darn good football team, not because of some of the questionable calls. Same thing. Also, do you think Joseph Asai has handed that script and goes, oh, wow, I'm going to be the GOAT all off season? Fantastic. Get out of here. Like, I'm getting worked up because I really do think there are people that are going to listen to this and be like, oh my God, here's the smoking gun. Get out of here. Get your tinfoil hat off, and maybe you can put it back on for Bigfoot and UFOs, because you know what? That's believable. I'll be honest. Bigfoot, UFOs, the alien base under the Denver International Airport, 10 times more believable than the NFL literally being scripted. Arian Foster, put down the pipe or pass it this way, one or the other. But with that being said, that's all we got for you tonight. As we get ready, obviously next week we'll be fully focused on the Super Bowl, of course, between the Kansas City Chiefs and my Philadelphia Eagles. But we have final thoughts. We'll start with you, Raider Jim.
Yeah, I just want to give a quick shout out and some recognition. Tom Brady has stepped down. 45 years old. He's not the oldest player in the NFL any longer, but the guy who is, Jason Peters, the offensive lineman for the Dallas Cowboys, just turned 41 years old. Big deal, you say. He's only 41. Brady was 45. Look at the stature of a Brady. Look at the stature of a Jerry Rice when he was playing his last games. This gentleman is 6'4", weighs 328 pounds, runs a 4.9 40, and has started 219 games as an offensive lineman. This is all pro. He's going to be, hopefully he will make the Hall of Fame. He was in the 2010s All-Decade team. What a guy, and congratulations. He is the patriarch of offensive linemen in the NFL.
Yeah, still hold a little bit of ill will spending your entire career with the Eagles, and the first team you leave for is the Dallas Cowboys. But yes, you are correct. A great career for Jason Peters. Hopefully, we'll see him next year as well. But Coach, final thoughts for yourself.
What a gem of a find, Raider Jim. To
Always.
yeah, go with that. I mean, I'm I'm aging myself, and my body's feeling it. And he's how old in this league? Probably feeling it
Yeah,
every
and
gosh
18 years
darn
as an
day.
offensive lineman.
Left tackle
Jeez,
too. Whew.
like you could, man. You just got to give that man his props, regardless of what team he's playing, because to last that long in that profession, to take that kind of beating that your body does, you know, we all wish we've been on that field, and this guy's done it for that long and taking that pounding. Good for him, man, and congratulations being the elder statesman of the NFL.
Yeah. It's good for him. And, my final thoughts, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to have for my final thoughts, but luckily one of my buddies just came to the rescue, sent me a post. They're doing some, I don't know what the quarterback competition is this weekend, whatever, but they were interviewing Derek Carr, and I don't know what he did, but obviously he did really well. And the Pro Bowl, whatever, is in Las Vegas. And the interviewer asked, goes, man, have you ever been that hot in Vegas? And he goes, no, and that's probably why I'm going to be playing somewhere else. And that right there, look, now Derek Carr, obviously, do I think he was the problem? No. Is it best for both parties to kind of break that up? Yes.
Absolutely.
But my goodness, to just have that, I guess, awareness, and just that right there, that makes him so likable in one of those ways, because you know what, he can take a step back and quote unquote laugh at the situation. He's still going to make millions of dollars, so it's a lot easier to laugh that way. But maybe that's my final thought. Sometimes life gives you lemons, make lemonade and laugh about it, kind of like Derek Carr just did. So that was a nice little clutch moment from one of my buddies who just sent that to me. So with that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the NFL Weekly, presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench, but we are first. It is time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating, everybody. We'll talk to you all next week for our Super Bowl preview. Have a great weekend and take care.